The legislation that they're talking about pertains only to the issuance of subpoenas and subpoenas duces tecum by a district attorney taking statements from a witness. At no time in our investigation did we issue investigative subpoenas or subpoenas duces tecum. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, this one section does not even apply to these investigations. My investigators are all fully qualified law enforcement officers. We had good reason to believe that a crime was being committed, and I sent them out to investigate it. And they made the cases. I think we were well within the law.
State Bureau of Narcotics. Just a moment.
Receive that, then I'll make my decision. What type of things are you talking about? Well, there were some people who were interviewed very briefly that I feel like I need further interviews with. There were a number of people who were not interviewed at all. And after reading the reports, I feel like that I would like to have statements from those individuals.
This is Kurt Autry. One of the agencies that will be most quickly affected by the governor's cutbacks will be the State Department of Corrections. The Corrections Department has been battling an overcrowding problem for quite some time. With a growing prison population comes a growing budget, and now Larry Meacham's department just won't have the money to keep up. Meacham met with Governor Nigh this afternoon to discuss those cutbacks, and the governor realizes that it will be difficult to trim that budget. But legally, he has no alternative.
We have no option under the law that we treat every agency exactly the same. So whatever reduction the Corrections Department has, the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office, the mental health, so forth. But as far as a problem, of course, this office can continue without any great problem. Corrections would obviously have a unique problem, and it's caused by, that could be caused by this reduction. What they will have to do is to look about the transfer of funds within their work program, like if they have some construction going on for which they've not signed a contract, perhaps that would be delayed.
One of the problems facing the Corrections Department is simple planning. The department allots their money on a quarterly basis, but the governor's 13% cutback and hiring freeze could end at any time. This forces the agency to make short-term plans at a time when many of the state prisons face long-term problems. Kurt Autry, Action 4, the state capitol.
It was cold and a little wet, but the people who came out to see the N.F.R's 4th annual parade didn't go home without at least being entertained. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
is that we may have 1 month without a cutback, and then the cutbacks are going to get progressively, and then we start getting the income tax money in. So, okay. We're at a point in the year when revenue collections aren't as bad as they're going to get. And since we've had bad collections early in the year, we don't have any reserve in the bank to draw on. We'll just have to continue to cut monthly allocations. And as history tells us, those cutbacks will have to grow and grow through the spring. Then late in the spring, the revenue picture will improve.
When you smell smoke.
These first graders at Willard Elementary School are learning about fire safety.
Smell smoke.
Learn Not to Burn is a special course set up by the fire department to teach youngsters tips about what to do in case of a fire and how to prevent one.
Okay, go to the window. Stay down low. Very good, very good. Okay, now when you get to the window, what are you going to do? Climb out the window, right? And then you will have a meeting place where?
Outside.
Outside somewhere, right?
How are you going to set the pot on the burners?
Joy Jefferson is a teacher consultant who works on the program with Oklahoma City school children, preschool through 8th grade.
It's easy for them to pick it up, especially if it's drilled long enough, which is what we kind of bank on. The teachers are teaching it on a regular basis, and we come in, Oklahoma City Fire Department comes in as a resource. Then the more it's drilled, the more fun and simple we make it, the different kinds of behaviors will stick with them.
The youngsters are encouraged to share what they've learned with their parents. Joy says the fire department hopes to save lives by teaching the children how to save themselves from becoming victims in a fire. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at Willard Elementary School.
And then you've become the servant of the story. And that's when it starts to take on a life.
Clay Lewis is teaching his fiction writing class at the University of Oklahoma how to revise stories. Proper revision can transform a poor piece of literature into something special. But not everything needs to be revised. Some stories are so good that rewrites just aren't necessary. And that's certainly true about the life of Doris Travis, a 78-year-old freshman in the class.
Oh, I just enjoy every minute of it. It's just so exhilarating and so satisfying. Well, I just love the learning of new things, and each new subject that I take up is just opening the world that much more for me.
She adds her spirit. Life is not a closed proposition, that learning is part of thriving and of being alive. And that's something I think she would have added if she'd been here when she was 20, and she certainly adds now.
Every Friday night, Doris and her husband Paul go country western dancing at the University Club. When Doris dances, it's something special. You see, Doris was a member of the Ziegfeld Follies from 1918 until 1920. She was 14 when she sat on the great Ziegfeld's lap and received her mother's blessing to join the show. It was the beginning of a career that saw Doris become a featured dancer and leading actress on both coasts. For a dozen years, Doris Travis was a star. The testimony to her stardom is several scrapbooks kept at the Travis Ranch. Doris is very much a woman of today, but she still enjoys reminiscing about Will Rogers, W.C. Fields, and Fanny Bryce.
All of these people were so real, unpretentious. You never had the feeling with them of, I'm the star of the show, as some unfortunate stars feel. They were just always real people.
After her stage career dimmed, Doris became a dance instructor for Arthur Murray. In the 1930s, she opened dance studios in Detroit. It was there she met Paul, and they've been married for 33 years. In 1968, they left Detroit for Oklahoma.
If you had it to do all over again, would you do anything differently?
I wouldn't do anything differently. I would have tried to appreciate the opportunities that I was having at that time. And let's say made more of them than I did.
But certainly Doris has made more of her opportunities than most of us. Bill Ross, Action 4, near Norman.
Life as wonderful experiences.
And yet I guess you'd have to say
In my opinion, you have very fine law enforcement officers. Getting this money to them. No. Shortfall. There also is perhaps another. I would say to any vendor who has a concern about the payment of their bills that I am going to recommend that we appropriate to the agency the money to pay those unpaid bills. But the vendor will have to go to the proper court and get a judgment against the state of Oklahoma, and then the budget office can honor any judgment given against us.
Over the last 20 months, we believe that no remedial legislation or regulation. The immediate effects of the Penn Square problem for the Federal Home Loan Bank were as follows. 14 instances.
Our feeling is that the failure does not teach us much new. Rather, it confirms a lesson of the past, namely that laws, regulations, and supervision are not always effective in preventing or curing problems, where a bank and its board of directors are dominated by a strong personality who's set on a course of mismanagement.
What they did, they gave them no pay raise. So they ended up, many of them, getting a 0% pay raise. Hey, the association is saying what our contention is. I guess to give you a little bit of background, what happened was And if merit raises were not legal according to Senate Bill 65, why did 23 agency directors that are an arm of the executive branch grant these merit raises? In fact, one of the agencies that granted these merit raises was Mr. Jim Thomas of the Office of Personnel Management, who is the director of the Personnel Board, who had great input into the law.
Susan Gill and her son Eli are just two of Legal Aid's 10,000 clients.
Hello, my name's Marilyn Stats. I'm an attorney here with Legal Aid. Susan Gill, nice to meet you. Thank you. Have a seat.
Marilyn Stats is one of 29 attorneys with the Western Oklahoma office. Last year there were 42, but the national organization's budget was cut from $325 million in 1981 to $241 million for '82. That's meant the local office has had to carefully think over its priorities. The Western Oklahoma legal aid attorneys no longer handle uncontested divorce cases, accept small claims actions, or write wills. Supporters of legal aid say it's important because the poor must have an avenue for justice. But the local director isn't sure everyone in Washington agrees.
What we're seeing happening now in Washington is really an attempt by the administration to do what it could not do in Congress, and that is eliminate the program or at least reduce its effectiveness.
More people come into the door of legal aid than they can ever hope to serve. But private attorneys are beginning to help out. Right now, 150 lawyers are providing part-time legal help for the poor, and the Oklahoma Bar Association hopes to eventually have 900 lawyers involved in the program. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the offices of Legal Aid.
People filled the basement of the old courthouse today with expectations of finding good bargains before Christmas. The Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office was holding another auction of stolen property that nobody has claimed. All the money raised goes back into the department, and all the property goes home with lucky bidders. The action is fast and a little hectic at times.
35 and 40 now 40. Yes! Now 5 and get $48. Here's one cheap enough. Now to you 60. Yes!
It's kind of interesting, it's exciting, and it keeps us busy, keeps us on our toes.
Firearms, radios, and even burglar alarms were auctioned off to the eager buyers. For many, it was a good way to pick up an inexpensive Christmas gift and have a lot of fun.
So yes! It's too late.
Nearby, at the state fairgrounds, another auction's going on. But this one's a bit different. These people are trying to buy a little bit of history.
Another auction of the defunct Penn Square Bank's valuables was underway this morning in the Made in Oklahoma building on the fairgrounds. As with the Sheriff Department's auction, there were some great values. But that was just part of the attraction. There were also some souvenir pieces waiting to be picked up.
Yes! Yes! This is the bar that they poured their drinks for all those guys when they came in here from C-First up in Seattle. This is the one right here. $25 to start?
20.
20, thank you.
Pit groups for 1/10 of their original cost. Tables and chairs marked down $200 or more. They bought them up at a record pace and took home a piece of the past at the same time. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
The Joe Harp Correctional Center near Lexington. This prison is home for 636 medium security male inmates. The guards at Joe Harp are called corrections officers. The corrections officers help maintain peace inside the prison's fences. They also keep order inside the prison's housing units. Several times each day, 22-year-old Janice Simmons and other corrections officers lock the prisoners in their cells. Each inmate is counted. The count is compared against a master sheet to determine if anyone has escaped.
You can be using the toilet. Some of them love to watch you, I guess. That's the only way you can say it.
Floyd Cumbie is serving a life sentence at Joe Harp for murder. He doesn't like the idea of female prison guards viewing him when he's undressed. Cumbie has filed a federal civil rights lawsuit alleging that the use of female corrections officers violates his constitutionally guaranteed right to privacy.
I know my rights are being violated. Anytime that I'm in there in my cell in my privacy and they can see me 4, 5, 6 feet away, I'm well, tell me to stand up on it, view me. You can be on the toilet. They tell you to stand up. It's a disband or direct order if you don't.
An Oklahoma City federal judge dismissed Cumbie's lawsuit as frivolous. However, an appeals court reinstated the suit, saying convicted prisoners do not forfeit all constitutional protections by reason of their conviction and confinement in prison. A lot of people would say this lawsuit is frivolous, that inmates don't have any constitutional rights. Well, the federal courts disagree, and in fact, Oklahoma's prison system is currently being shaped by another such inmate lawsuit. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the Joe Harp Correctional Center.
Of course, we have a long hall, 10 classrooms, and things like that that we're getting ready to come over, even the old system, so by Sunday we'll have to get all this out. We're back in as a Christian Service Center, the way it looked before in a way. Not quite so organized, but we're helping more people per day than we ever had before. We've helped 88 was our high before, and now we're into 493. So you see, we've had over 5 times the number of people in a smaller location than we've ever had before.
I was just thinking about needy people, you know. There's a lot of less fortunate people than I am because of the economy, this type of thing. And it's something we could do to help the citizens more.
Oklahoma City police were not taking any chances with what was said to be a bomb at the Lakeshore Bank this morning. A man identified as a white male in his late teens or early 20s threatened to blow up the bank if a drive-in bank teller didn't give him money. Bomb experts arrived to dismantle the device and determine whether or not the object was an explosive. Police say the suspect placed the device on the outside of a teller's window. It was made of a clay-like material wrapped with wires. He then pushed what was supposed to be a detonation device, but authorities say the teller called his bluff.
He threatened the teller again and then pushed the button on the mechanism. Of course, nothing happened. The teller sounded the hold-up alarm. The man ran west, fled from the scene on foot. We are searching the area. The device was dismantled by our bomb technicians. It was a dummy device. It had all of the components, however, it was lacking any explosive device or true triggering mechanism.
Police say they are looking for a man wearing a gray and red plaid shirt in the area. The FBI was called to the scene, but since no money was taken, the investigation will be handled by Oklahoma City Police. Officials say the dummy bomb will be examined for any clues that might lead to the arrest of a suspect. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.
Care can.
Okay, what's the name of the club, ma'am? Blue Note? Is that North?
All this kind of stuff, and you just don't find that in Dallas or Los Angeles. How many hour shifts do you all work? Is it? Do you make big ones?
You wear bigger? How do you lean over? That's not right.
Y'all speed forward about 100.
The shooting erupted at about 8 o'clock this morning, apparently the result of a long-standing domestic argument. Mr. Adair, after the argument, went out into the garage and allegedly fired one round through the garage door. That round struck Mrs. Adair's mother in the hip. Adair then purportedly entered the house and fired 2 more shots. Both shots struck Mrs. Adair. She was dead at the scene.
I'm Charles Schnitzer. At the time of year when it's the thought that counts, some people's thoughts are a little misguided. Christmas gift exchanging is becoming as traditional as Christmas gift giving. But at the stores we visited today, exchangers were not out in the numbers merchants had anticipated. Store managers say they hadn't known exactly what to expect this year, but had prepared for the annual exchange rush. Many of the tables stood empty. Managers speculate shoppers may be waiting until tomorrow to exchange the gifts that didn't quite fit, either in size or in color. Some stores were busier than others, but here, the people looking for something different were standing in line with the people looking for something new in the bustle of after-Christmas sales. Many merchants don't want to guess why returns at their stores were lower than normal for the day after Christmas, but one man suggested it may be because it falls on a Sunday this year. And perhaps the tradition of correcting a loved one's good intentions will get into full swing later in the week. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
If you thought December 25th was Christmas, you could be wrong. Many Oklahomans are celebrating the holiday today. No, it doesn't have anything to do with a religious preference. It's a simple matter of money. 30 to 50% off on all merchandise was the order of the day at Quail Springs Mall. Many local merchants have too much holiday inventory in stock. They need to unload their wares, and many smart shoppers were here today to take advantage of those bargains.
Well, everything is on sale after Christmas, as you know, and I'm not spending a lot of money, but mostly it's just fun to be out.
Well, because things are marked down and get good bargains and after Christmas sales.
You would think that most stores would reap the profits from post-holiday sales, but many merchants have to unload their Christmas goods to make room for incoming summer inventory. It's cheaper to sell a holiday item at cost than pay to store it in a warehouse until next year. Remember, shoppers, only 362 days until next Christmas. At Quail Springs Mall, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
I was not surprised by the number of bad heaters because we have been involved in the boiler and pressure vessel business for a long time, and we know what ignorance can produce. So I wasn't surprised so much. I was alarmed. You find one bad hot water heater, you're alarmed.